Okay, so everybody, welcome to Thursday Garden Chat. We've got this wonderful international audience, and where I'm sitting, it's pouring with rain, but there's lots of people in sunny climes, which is nice. Anyway, great to see everybody. Just to sort of tell you what we've been up to, I've been traveling and teaching in Lithuania and last week, which was wonderful, and also going to a brilliant conference in Germany. So I've got so many notes. It's fantastic. So I'm back, and now Noel's traveling. He's off in he's in his camper van. If anyone thinks he might be sitting in a Learjet, no, it's not. It's a camper van. Well, it looks like it might be a Learjet.
Yeah, we sort of maintain we have the illusion that this is actually the Garden Masterclass executive jet.
Yes, yes. Well, we will get one day. Don't worry. Anyway, what's coming up on Garden Masterclass in the next couple of weeks? Obviously, we are just on the cusp of March, and hope the weather changes. But we have got the wonderful, amazing Roy Diblick doing a webinar very soon, and we've had Roy on our Thursday Garden Chat before. Roy needs no introduction, certainly in the States, that's for sure. But he is iconic and he is brilliant. But he's talking about how to design contemporary plantings with perennial plantings, but also how to care and nurture for them, and how to think about planting them so that they're in, they're with plant associations and with a much more sort of thinking way, which is great. And he is, I think I could listen to Roy reading the telephone directory. He's just wonderful. He's brilliant. And then we go across the border to Canada, and we've got a webinar with Ben O'Brien, who is a wonderful young landscape designer who is, or has been for the last 6 years, doing trials of growing in what he calls grit. We call it gravel on this side of the Atlantic. And he's been documenting all his findings, and it's great. So that's going to be very exciting. We have our last session with the wonderful Caroline Jackson, Bad Botany. Caroline, I know some of you have been attending that. If you think you've missed it, then it's still not too late to join up. Caroline is fantastic. Her last session was on conifers. When I was at college, I didn't like conifers, so I didn't listen to anything, and now I regret it. And then Caroline's wonderful webinar last month on conifers is just, I mean, I'm joking a bit because I do appreciate conifers now, but so yeah, so those are a few of the webinars coming up, but there's more webinars after that. So throughout the spring, we've got a really nice steady supply of great things to watch online. And then we also next month, March, we start our live events, which is so exciting. I can't believe it's already time to do that. And our first live event is at Yo Valley. It's an evening with Midori Shintani from the Tokachi Millennium Forest in Hokkaido. Yo Valley is a brilliant venue. They're great friends of ours, and we've now sort of built up this annual tradition of starting the live event season at Yo Valley because they've got an amazing restaurant, why wouldn't you, and they've got a lovely garden, an organic garden. So they're hosting us, so it's an evening event with supper, and then Midori is going to do a talk about the 72 seasons. We were just talking about how the seasons are changing. Well, in Japan there is this sort of philosophy that there are 72 seasons.
Wow.
And yeah, it's hard enough to get your head around 4, isn't it? And so she's going to be talking about that. And then after her talk, Dan Pearson is going to be in conversation with her because, of course, they work together on the Millennium Forest Garden. So that's going to be a lovely evening. So there's lots more live events to follow this year. Those of you who are on our mailing list, there's a newsletter going out this weekend just to remind you of everything, but also we're launching a couple of new events, and I'll just mention one of them, which is 2 days botanizing in Sardinia in May with Professor James Hitchmo and Marco Scano, and that will be wonderful because it's one day we're up in the hills and the next day we're along the coast, and it's in northern Sardinia where the landscape is absolutely beautiful. So if you're new to Garden Masterclass, have a look through. We do offer a lot of stuff. The website at first, I think, can seem a bit like, whoa, it's all over the place. But, just work your way through it and have a look at the things that we do live. And if you're not in this country, then have a look at what we do online. We also record all of our Thursday Garden chats like this evening, and they go onto our YouTube channel. And so there's, I don't know, we've lost count, over 200 hours of free viewing on the YouTube channel with everybody and anybody, and it's just great. So, you know, that's all there to be enjoyed, and it's all free. So what's not to like, really? Anyway, that's kind of where we've been and what's happening and what's coming up, and back to this evening. So Noel, do you want to kind of talk about what we're up to tonight?
Yes, yes. We I think since we got going in April 2020, we've had on several flower farmers, haven't we?
Yeah, yeah, you're
Rare,
talking about the online side of things.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
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 and
yeah,
including that rare creature, a male flower farmer
yeah. We've had a
down in
man
Sussex.
on. Yes,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. And it sort of vaguely occurred to me at the time, you know, men are a bit of a minority in the flower farming world, and you know, sort of perhaps there might be the odd black flower farmer somewhere. Anyway, I've now discovered apparently we've got 39 of them. So this evening we're going to talk to the black flower farmers, and it's going to be the most ambitious one of these events we've done because we've got 4 people from 4 different time zones. So it all goes smoothly. So now, D Hall in Norfolk, Virginia, a Mermaid City. You are, what are we calling you? Are we calling you the convener, the facilitator of Black Flower?
You know, the founder, the rabble rouser, the friend bullier, any of those will do, depending on the day.
Chief cook and bottle washer?
But yeah,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
two.
Great.
It's bucket washer for flower farmers, and the
Yes, yeah. And you were, before we started, you were telling me about where you grew up, which got you really hooked, didn't it, on
yeah.
plants?
So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, directly across the street from the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. So I spent my entire childhood in their children's garden, which is the oldest children's botanical garden in the country, as well as community gardening. My family's from St. Lucia, so I also grew up there in part, and my grandmother was a lay farmer florist on the side. So I got to see her do her work. She would import flowers from the UK. Of course, St. Lucia was a British territory. And she had a combination of, you know, cottage flowers and tropical flowers and all sorts of things. And I got to kind of sit at the table and see her haggle, you know, haggle with people over pricing for weddings, events, etc. And, you know, in her spare time.
Right, right. So when did you decide to follow this up professionally?
In 2020, when I was looking for flowers in 2019 for an event, I could not find a grower who could grow, who had anything with any sort of scale that could provide what I was looking for. And where I am in southeastern Virginia, there's you know, a rich agricultural history. So it really surprised me that I couldn't. I'd always gardened, I'd always grown flowers, and I had an opportunity at my house to turn what was, you know, a patch of turf into an unusual cut flower farm. And I did that. I started with my space, and then I started acquiring additional growing space when neighbors saw me outside and asked me, "Hey, what are you doing?" And it kind of spiraled from there. And I said, well, nobody's at market. Sure, I can take these to market. There's nobody doing subscription. I can do that too. And then there was just kind of an attitude of, well, if nobody else, you know, if nobody else is doing it, why not? Why not me?
Mm, mm, mm. Great. And so when and how did you start Black Flower Farmers?
I started it in the spring of 2021. I was, you know, flower farming is a very small community to begin with. And I knew that it wasn't just me out there. I wasn't the only one. You know, when you're online, the algorithm kind of finds you people. So it would find me local people. And then I had hashtags I would save so I could look for people. And I found Aisha, who now owns, which it used to be Patagonia Flower Farm, and I cannot think of the name. She's since moved and changed the name of her flower farm. And then we started adding people, but not the famous Mima Davis of Urban Buds, because I was like, she's a big deal. She's not going to want to be in like our little, you know, our little internet group. She's like a big time, big famous flower person. And, you know, here's me with my little hoary, you know, putting in little plugs or whatever. And so it started from there and it's spiral. And yeah, now we're at 39, maybe 40 members, because I keep finding people as, you know, people tell others about us or, you know, hear about us in different ways. And it's fantastic. So we have people from mostly the United States, East Coast to West Coast, you know, North, South, Midwest. But we now have 2 growers in Canada. Of course, Stell is in the UK. There's a grower that's in South Africa, and I hope it will continue to grow, as more people learn about us.
Fantastic.
I was wondering how well organized flower farmers in the United States are. I mean, as a sort of general group.
Well, we do have the Association for Specialty Cut Flower Growers is probably the largest organization that most people are familiar with, and they are pretty well organized. Mima could probably tell us how many members there are. I'm not sure how many they are, but it's an organization that's constantly growing. It's been around since the late 80s, and it's a fantastic resource for anybody who grows cut flowers or is interested in getting to know how to grow cut flowers or is even looking for cut flowers. They're a resource for all of those things. They provide so much education and knowledge for everybody, and it's really been invaluable to have them you know, here in the States and in Canada. I was lucky enough in 2022, I attended a conference. They instituted a scholarship for BIPOC, and I was able to attend the 2022 conference. And that was fantastic, getting to meet lots of my peers for the first time in first person and, you know, create greater and greater amounts of community. And, you know, I try to attend the sessions, but I feel like usually you can find me outside the session gossiping with somebody, because that's how you end up really making and, you know, growing those connections.
Right. And I think when we first spoke, you were just about to go off to a convention and you were going to be doing a presentation on growing native plants as cut flowers, which I thought was really interesting. So I think we'd really like to hear about that. You know, what are the species you're growing? You know, what particular difficulties do they present in terms of cultivation and presentation? And
Sure. So I live in a, you know, coastal community. We're kind of at the forefront of climate change. Norfolk here in Virginia is the area in the country on the eastern seaboard that's probably going to be hit first and hardest by climate change, in part because it was built on swampland. You know, we're at sea level, kind of below sea level. And with climate change, you know, we are now having all kinds of flash flooding, storms, greater amounts of nuisance flooding, where you can, you know, in my old neighborhood, sometimes you could kayak in the neighborhood because there was that amount of water on the streets. And so there are lots of mitigation efforts. And for me, part of that mitigation effort, of course, we can't totally, you know, hold back the floodgates. But one thing that can be done is to grow native plants and encouraging native plants. Other people to grow native plants. I think one of the great opportunities that we have as flower farmers is to help educate the public, because we are out at farmers market, or people do find us online, attend workshops, etc. So I grow everything from northern sea oats, which for me is an essential in my bouquet work, to, you know, we have here a native sunflower, swamp sunflower, which is not perennial, but drops a tremendous amount of seed. There's mistflower, ageratum is native here. Eryngium ucifolium, rattlesnake master. So they're not just, you know, plants that are beautiful. They're also cool and useful. And I can say, hey, the pollinators really love this. Add this to your garden. It's easy to grow. It requires less watering, less maintenance. This is in its native habitat and climate, and it just gives people a little opportunity to maybe learn something new that they didn't know. And I love that.
And we did very recently, I don't know whether you saw this as well, Annie, I can't remember who sent it to me, a survey recently conducted of US consumers about buying native plants, and it was really quite sensational. You know, something like 80% of people questioned recognize the importance of buying native plants, and specifically linking that to biodiversity. So that was very good news. Yes.
Yeah. So can I just ask you, Dee, so do you get people coming to you saying, I want, a floral bouquet, or I want you to do a wedding, but I just want native plants? Are they asking for native plants?
People aren't asking for native plants. And in fact, this spring and summer, I'll actually be doing 2 different cut flower native plant workshops. One, a local native plant nursery has asked me to do one, and then a local environmental organization whose focus really is on environmentalism, has also asked me to do one.
Yeah. But because I suppose people seeing, if they're going to an event or going to a wedding or seeing a bouquet with natives, it's raising the awareness of native plants to people who may not be as aware, and then the potential of them. So it's helping to really promote, isn't it?
For sure. And there are lots of things that people already have and use, whether it's, Rudbeckia or Echinacea, that they don't even recognize. They don't even know they're native plants. And, that presents a quick opportunity. Like, well, these things already existing. They're in your environment. They've been all around you the whole time, and you didn't even know. What they do so well here. Well, they're native to this area. That's why.
Yeah. That's true.
So Dee, could I ask what may seem like, excuse me if this sounds like a silly question, but why set up a group specifically for Black flower farmers?
I wanted, there are historically lots of challenges that Black farmers have faced in the United States. And I wanted a space where we could talk about those things. I mean, right, the USDA has just settled discrimination suits that stemmed from, years of systemic racism where Black growers specifically were denied loans. There has been something like 90% of Black land that was gained following the end of the Civil War, which was something like 16 million acres, has been lost, through, and it's mostly as a result of that, systemic racism. Again, people having to sell, not having access to what they need in order to survive. And so I thought it was important to have a space where people could say, hey, has this happened to you maybe? Or, and why? That we may not necessarily feel comfortable talking about in other spaces. I wanted Black growers to be able to have a safe space where they could feel comfortable chatting about issues that may affect them directly, that their peers may not have any experience with. And while they can sympathize, certainly may not have any solutions or things they may not know about, whether it's, hey, this is a grant for BIPOC growers, or this is happening, just specific things that can help to increase the number of us that are, especially as Black people here are increasingly trying to return to growing and to return to the land.
Yeah. Great.
And when you set up the initial, did it grow quite gently, or did people kind of latch on and flock?
Oh no, it's kind of been a gentle growth. I've tried to kind of make the group, like, keep it so it's people who are actively growing commercially rather than hobbyists. And there's nothing wrong with hobbyists, but I wanted to make sure that we had there's lots of spaces for gardeners, and I wanted one that was specifically for farmers who are facing these issues. How do you get a farm number? How do you write a grant for this? How do I make this type of arrangement, etc., for working farmers to have a space? It's grown, it's trickling, but I'm pleased, at how it's grown, and happy I'm always happy whenever I find somebody new. We add them to the group. There's a great welcome, and people are genuinely happy to be there to help, support and mentor one another.
Yeah. And so the events that you organize, do you organize specific events? Do you have like a monthly, Zoom call meeting? How do you?
No, we haven't done anything like that in a while. We're probably overdue for it, but farmers tend to be a busy lot.
Yeah.
And it can be herding cats trying to get large groups of people together to do anything. We did there were maybe 10, 12 of us at our last industry conference in November. Mima's farm was actually the host farm, Urban Buds. And it was really just fantastic to see not only people I knew, but then there were other growers who I didn't know of, who are not on social media, who I hadn't been able to connect with previously. And so that was great to meet and add new people into the fold too.
Great.
Great. So perhaps then we should head off to St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah. So Mima, welcome. And where have your flowers?
Thank you.
Where have your flowers gone? They're on your wallpaper, but you had them.
Oh yeah. They're right here. They're
lovely.
Right
Just to
next
prove
to me here.
to prove you
We
really
bring them
are a
into-
flower farmer. Yeah.
and my tulips, my freesia, my tulips, we're cutting on ranunculus, and
Fantastic.
I actually have beautiful dahlias right now.
Wow, what?
Dahlias already, really?
Oh my
Wow.
goodness. In flower.
Yes, I wish I had bought one of them over. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, dahlias
okay.
blooming in the greenhouse right now.
In February. That's bonkers. That's completely bonkers. So Mima, you're outside of St. Louis, aren't you? You're
No, I'm not outside of St. Louis. I'm actually in the heart of St. Louis, in a urban residential neighborhood. The farm is 1 acre, and it is 1 acre. It's contiguous lots. Okay,
Wow.
we bought lots over time,
Oh, right.
and so the city block is 14 lots, and we own 8 of the lots. So we have like over half a block in production.
Wow.
Here, 1 acre cut flower farm.
Wow.
Right here in the city.
Fantastic. So is your business is a lot of your business within the city, or are you doing and supplying outside of the city as well?
No, all of our business is 100% local.
Right.
So we do all of our business right here in the city. We do farmers markets. We have a community supported agriculture program, a CSA, a flower CSA, and we do small events. We don't do weddings anymore since the pandemic. Before the pandemic, we used to do weddings, and we've stopped doing those. Our CSA has taken off. Our farmers market has just skyrocketed since COVID. We have a really huge supportive network of customer base here in St. Louis. So
but your backstory, a bit like Dee, you're not, you didn't train in flower farming and you didn't come from St. Louis. So tell us a bit about your backstory and where you came from.
Yeah, so I was in 1989, I was a social worker in New York City. My mom was dating a guy, and he was a good listener, and she basically said to him that she liked plants. Oh, my mom travels a lot. She really meant like a pothos sitting in a pot on a desk. And as a wedding present, she was moving from New York City to here. And he went out and bought her a house as a wedding present that was an old master gardener's house. And they had 132 rose bushes in the backyard, in a lean-to greenhouse, small lean-to greenhouse that was packed with plants. And as a wedding present. So when I flew out for the wedding, my mom, I'll never forget it, she grabbed my hand, walked me into that greenhouse, and she said, I don't know what any of this stuff is, but don't let anything die. And I was going to stay there for the week while they honeymooned. And during that week, and I was a social worker in New York City. I mean, I knew nothing about plants. And during that week, I thought it'd be really great if I made her like a little scrapbook. And so I took leaves of different plants and drove them around to garden centers to try to identify them and write in this little scrapbook for her. And that week, I didn't have a name for it. I didn't know if it was floriculture, agriculture. I didn't know what to call it. All I knew was, all I knew was that I had fallen completely in love. And in 1989, I lived in a studio apartment in New York City. And when I was here during that week, I got in a newspaper and found out that I could have a 15-acre farm for the same amount of money with a house on it.
Wow.
That's incredible.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
It was a no-brainer. Although I had no idea what I was doing, I did buy that farm, and decided to go back to school to retool myself. So I went back and got a degree in plant and soil science, and worked at a native plant nursery for 4 years while I was learning in school. And every day he would give me a flat of plants and he would say, go plant these on your farm. Go plant these on your farm. And after 4 years, I was making little bouquets for
Wow.
people.
Yeah.
And I remember we were collecting seed one day and of liatris, and he took me up on this cliff, and there was like purple liatris as far as you could see.
Wow.
And he said, when I first started my business, I used to sell these for $1 a stem to florists. And I was $1, $2, $3, just thousands of them there. And that idea stuck.
Fantastic.
And so I started growing cut flowers. That was 30 years ago.
Wow.
And you know,
And you've
still
never
grow.
looked back. You never looked
And
back.
I never looked back. I found the association, especially cut flower growers, and joined that association. Have been an active member of that. I'm currently the vice president of the association, and
Yeah.
you know, and then I found the flower farmers. I was really hurt. It took them a year to invite me. And they didn't invite me. They didn't invite me. I found them. And I was like, how did you not invite me? I couldn't even begin to, I still can't comprehend that.
Yeah.
But they were, I guess, just intimidated and didn't thought I was too busy. I'm never too busy
Oh.
to be with these beautiful Black women. Are you kidding me? I mean, that was just amazing. Amazing. I mean, you know, this industry is pretty white. I mean, it just is. And
Yeah.
and that's for a lot of reasons. You know, we don't have a really positive background when it comes to agriculture. As Dee said, there are a lot of barriers. And so I'm just really thrilled to have this group that you know I could hang out with and lean on and share information and work with the associate. I'm kind of like a liaison between the association and this group. I definitely helped organize the BIPOC scholarships to attend the conference, and that's just going to grow. I just came back from our board meeting, and I was like, look, guys, we're going to do this. So I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, and we're going to keep working on this. So, and they're really committed to that mission.
Brilliant. And I'm dying to ask, so what happened to your mum's backyard I mean, yeah, so tell me about those roses. You didn't let them die.
Well, it was you know, I'm sad to say it was a big learning experience for me, you know, because I didn't know what I was doing. So when the neighbor rented a tiller or was tilling, I was like, okay, maybe I need to go out and till. And when I was tilling, all these little bulbs were popping up. I didn't know what they were. You know, it was crazy. So actually my mom husband died, and but I guess those roses are still there. But she moved. She lives in Florida now. But you know, it was definitely my training ground. I think I killed a lot of things. But
well, everyone's
you know,
killed a lot of things.
Yeah.
What a great wedding present! I think it's the best wedding present I've ever heard.
Yeah, and you know, I tell people now, you know, because I came out of social work, and I tell people, you know, I haven't changed being in social work. I just changed the delivery method. I mean, because you know, flowers, they bring such incredible joy, such incredible lifting of spirit. You know, during the pandemic, wow, did we ever see a boom in flower? And the sale of flowers, and the production was amazing, because, you know, if you think about it, flowers are with us from birth to death. Absolutely. Right? I mean, for every single event that we have, weddings, funerals, you know, births, I mean, they're with us, and they're not going to go anywhere, you know? People are always going to send flowers. I was a flower grower during 9/11. And when all the airplanes shut down, and that's what told me that flowers are always going to be here, because our phone rang off the hook because all the planes had stopped, and we were, you know, like the game in town, right?
And your climate there, because I'm interested. I was just imagining that you were out of the city, but you're in the city, so I guess you've got a kind of you know, like warming effect of the city. But St. Louis, normally you're kind of you know,
warm. We're hot.
We're
hot. We're very, very hot this summer, and with the concrete effect, you know, that's really beneficial in the spring, in that we heat up faster. So I could, you know, it's really beneficial to my crops. but midsummer it gets really hot,
Yeah. And
and
then
that makes it
and
more of
with
a challenge.
so with watering, are you having to pay for water? Is your water on a meter like it is here in the UK? Yeah, okay. So every drop you pay for. Yeah, okay. Yeah, interesting. And your
Costly.
yeah. But your winters, so what are the winters like?
Well, with climate change, the winters have gotten really mild, which is really it's tough on flower farmers right now.
Yeah.
With this climate change, we're always trying to jump through the newest hoop, right? So right now, it's February and I've got shade on my ranunculus already. I'm trying to keep those cool crops cool, right?
Yeah.
And it's 76 degrees the other day here, and ranunculus shuts down above 65, and
Yeah.
so I've really been trying to jump through those climate change hoops, and the
Yeah.
polar vortexes are in the winter are just a lot harder than what they ever were. So
Yeah.
it does it is
Yeah.
a challenge for sure.
And do you get snow?
Very little snow.
Okay.
We haven't had a really good snow here
For a few
in
years.
several years,
Yeah, okay. That's interesting.
which
Wow.
is fine by me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Wow, what a
Imagine,
story.
yes,
What a
yes, yes.
story.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Okay, thank you, Mimo. So I think let's head further west to California and Natasha. So Natasha,
Hi.
hi there. Hi, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us about your business?
Yes, so I am an hour away from Yosemite National Park. I'm in the foothill of the Sierras. And when I started selling in farmers markets, and that really wasn't a good fit. And so I do mostly craft fairs and art shows, and then I do a local pop-up here in town. And so majority of my flowers are actually sold 3 hours away in the Bay Area.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
And how did you get started?
So we bought this house, we lived in San Francisco, which is of course one of the most expensive real estate markets. Was the most expensive real estate market in the country and one of the most expensive in the world. And so we couldn't afford to buy a house, and we're like, well, we better buy something. And so we bought a vacation property here. And I started working on the garden, and I had lost my mother. And so it was the only thing that really got me out of bed, frankly.
Wow.
And so I spent most of my days and late nights out planting, and fell in love and decided to start a flower farm.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And so you say you're at quite a high elevation in terms of
I'm low. I mean,
right.
relative to Mariposa. So there's
Okay.
plenty of people that live at 4,000, 5,000 above sea level. I'm 2,400 above sea level.
Right. Okay. So your climate challenges, I guess, dry is probably I'm for you, is it lack of water, or what's your challenges there?
It's extreme. It's because the last 2 years, actually, like last year we had record rain, record snow. We got 12 inches of snow in one day.
Wow.
Which is unheard of for my location.
Mm-hmm.
So before that we had drought. So it's really hard to prepare.
Yeah.
Because like last year we were flooded. I mean, I was spending most of my time digging ditches to try to get the water to move off of my farmland. And a year before that, I couldn't run my drip lines enough to get water to my plants. So it definitely fluctuates season to season, year to year.
Yeah. And have you got people working with you? Is it just you? How
It's just me.
Yeah.
Occasionally my husband will help. I beg, and he'll come out for a few hours. And occasionally I get volunteers, or I have someone that will come in part-time here or there, a day or two. But majority of the time it's me.
Yeah. And who are you selling to? Who's your customer? Who are your clients?
Okay, so locally I am at a really popular coffee shop, and I'm there every Tuesday, and so the locals come and buy flowers. And then I do a lot of shows in San Francisco. And my clients really range the gamut. I'd say from like 18 to 70. Probably more women than men, but I get a decent amount of male customers too, every ethnicity. It really flowers really touch everyone in the city, which is awesome.
Yeah. And when you say you do shows, do you mean that you're doing floristry as well, or you're selling at shows?
So I'm like at art and craft shows, or art and wine. So I'm selling. So my husband uses native wood from our property, and he creates wood vases.
Oh, wow.
And so I will do a lot of arrangements in the wood vases. I do mostly dry, but I do some fresh. Majority of my business is actually dried.
Oh, right. That's
dried flowers.
Yeah. And you grow a huge range of species, don't you?
I do. I grow about 115 varieties. I have a hard time saying no to anything.
Wow. Gosh, that is a lot.
And what about California natives?
I do. So I grow a lot of California natives. We're lucky enough to we have like 15 varieties of lupin here. And so I collect seed, and I'm growing more lupin, a lot of milkweed. We have unusual frosted explosion is a native here, native grass. Of course, the California poppy, western redbud, which is a tree.
California. Yeah.
What'd you say about California? I missed, what did you say?
I would never have guessed that California poppy would be a good cut flower.
It's, it's great for events. It's not great for, say, the home buyer, because they only last a few days, but it is great for events. It's got that airy, sort of floaty look that a lot of florists like.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so a little bit closer to home now, Sal, or for me anyway. Sal, hello and welcome. And you are over here.
Yes.
You're in Norfolk. And for those of you who are listening from the States, that's East Anglia. It's on the East Coast. Generally quite dry, but not at the moment.
No.
No mermaids, as far as we know.
Yes.
Now, Sal, you're not just any old flower farmer. You are, we understand, really one of Britain's premier flower farmers. And indeed, you've written a book and you run courses.
I wouldn't say I'm a premier flower farmer in the UK, but yes, I have written.
We hear you have a very good reputation. How did you get?
Oh, sorry, Noel, I just missed what you said there.
So what's your backstory? So how did you get into this?
Well, I came to flower farming through a slightly different route. None of my family are green-fingered at all. No, my mum and dad only have to look at a plant and they kill it, really. So, but I was actually introduced to horticulture after I'd got involved in some environmental campaigning close to where I lived. And it was meeting those climate activists, actually, they introduced me to horticulture, market gardening, vegetable growing. And so I spent some time working on some organic farms. And that was sort of my first horticultural experience. And I absolutely loved it. Just loved being able to grow my own food, basically. And those farms that I worked on originally in the mid-90s, they obviously, organic farming was kind of, I wouldn't say a new concept, but commercially, certainly, it was a growing sort of part of the industry. And those first farms that I were on, they were starting to sell vegetables through vegetable box schemes.
Oh, right.
And so there was this real ethos of providing local food for local people. And I just loved that ethos. So a little bit later on, I went back to horticultural college and trained as a garden designer at Capel Manor College.
Good old Capel Manor, yay!
On the edge of London. And worked, and that's actually where I met my husband. He was training at Capel Manor at the same time. So
what year were you there, Sal? What year you there?
1999 till
Oh, right. Just
2001.
after me. Yeah, just after me. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So we ran a garden design and landscape business in London until we decided to move to Norfolk in East Anglia. In 2007, we moved
Oh,
here.
right. Yeah, yeah.
So one of the things I always wanted to get back to growing, though, because I absolutely love garden design and working with plants. But whilst you buy lots of plants and put them in the ground for your clients, you don't actually grow them. And it's the growing that I really missed.
Yeah.
So I always knew I wanted to get back to that. So in 2013, I just knew that I wanted to start a flower farm. So I
Yeah.
wanted to work with plants. I've come away from the vegetables and sort of, just really got into flowers. And I just knew that I wanted to provide a local, sustainably produced product for local customers. Because in that time, I'd been involved with those organic farms, thinking about how we grow vegetables sustainably and without chemicals. I'd learned quite a lot about the global flower industry as well at that time.
Yeah.
There are lots of issues with the global industry, and it's really inherently an unsustainable industry.
Yeah.
Lots of environmental damage, but the social impact of the industry as well is huge. And I wanted to be involved in a sustainable change going forward, for the local people in my area.
Yeah.
So that's
how you got into it. And how big is your flower farm? What sort of size have you got? What's your growing area?
So it's exactly 1 acre of land, and I rent the land that I grow on.
Right.
Anyone who knows about UK land prices, especially in Norfolk, we're about a mile away from the coast as well. So it's a really desirable area. Land prices are pretty high.
Yeah.
So I rent 1 acre of land. We're on a very sandy loam on a slope, a very windy site in the driest area of the UK. Although at the moment, this month, we've had 3 times the amount of our average rainfall.
3 times. That's phenomenal. I think it's probably rained every day in February here, hasn't it? It's been, And for you and for East Anglia, I mean, so what's your soil like there? I mean, is that rain going into the soil? Is it or are you waterlogged? What's it like?
Well, I am on a really sandy loam, and
right,
because we're so close to the coast, we do have really quite sandy soil, so it's very free draining.
Okay, yeah.
But over the past 10 years, we've been incorporating lots of organic matter into the soil.
Yeah.
And that's been really important for us, obviously, to increase the moisture retaining properties of the soil, particularly because we're in such a dry area.
Yeah.
So we're not waterlogged, but my site is the wettest I've ever seen it. And Mima was just showing us her lovely flowers. My field is just like mud at the moment.
And who are you selling to? So who are your customers?
So my business is focused on selling into the wholesale trade. So we sell direct to florist.
Right.
We do also do some retail selling. And that's really because the 1 acre site that we're on wouldn't be financially viable if I only sold to those wholesale customers.
Yeah.
So you have to do a proportion of our sales at a higher level.
Yeah.
In order to make it a financially viable business.
And what you've grown over the years since you started the farm, has that changed and developed? Or are you growing a very similar range to when you started? How has that worked out?
Actually, there's quite a lot has changed. And it's not just about things like the soil conditions or even, actually there's a stilby, for example, is a really popular cut flower. I can't grow that on my site because it's just far too dry and sunny to grow that particular type of plant. But there are lots of things that I've learned over the years that are actually not financially viable for me to grow. at
Interesting.
the scale that I'm growing on.
Mm-hmm.
So really carefully looking at the productivity and the profitability of the individual crops that I grow, that's really shifted my crop selection.
Right, interesting.
And also, but shifted again the viability of the business.
Yeah. And again, is it you and your husband? Have you got a team of people? What's the setup there?
No, my husband doesn't work with me.
He
runs
doesn't.
the
Oh, no.
business.
All right. So he trained in horticulture, but he's
Yeah, he's got his own business that he runs.
right.
But I do rope him in to perhaps deliver flowers for me if he's, sort of driving past one of the farm shops
Yeah.
once a week. But I've got a part-time member of staff, and we also offer paid work experience opportunities for people who want to learn about cut flower farming.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Actually, a question's just popped in. We have a few questions, but it's quite topical as we've got you. And it's what would your top 5 plants be? Now, I don't know whether that's from profitability or but be interesting. What are the ones that really do work?
So actually, top of my profitability list this year is miscanthus.
Ah, interesting.
And that's because it takes very, very, very little labour to grow.
Yeah.
And actually, that is a crop that I'm able to sell every stem. If we don't sell it fresh, we can dry it and we sell it.
Yeah.
So I've literally sold every stem I could produce of that. So there's very little waste in the crop, but very little labour involved.
Right.
Not lots of inputs or processes getting that crop.
Yeah.
Sort of seed to sale.
Yeah, that is, as Rachel, who asked the question, I never expected miscanthus to be top of the list. I don't think any of us would have, but yeah, interesting. Yeah,
actually, it's funny because lots of people, when you look at Instagram as well, and lots of people would think, roses, peonies, sweet peas, all of those wonderful things that are really, really popular, they're actually down at the bottom of my profitability list.
Wow, yeah.
Oh, they're not the most profitable things, certainly for me to grow on my site.
Yeah, interesting.
So Sal, do tell us about the book.
Oh, yes, I'll just, that's okay, just show that there. I wrote a book that was published in April 2022, and it's a little handbook that just goes through everything you need to know about growing cut flowers sustainably. Right from setting up your plot at the outset to looking at seasonal production of various cut flower varieties.
Yeah, great. And so that came out in 2022, did you say?
Yeah, April 2022.
Fabulous. And is that's published with...
and you do courses, and I was particularly interested in the one you offer on how people can actually set up a flower farm business, and that's could be of interest to us, Annie, eh?
Yep, absolutely. But Sal, are you can't be, well, maybe you can be the only black flower farmer in the UK. There has to be others, or are you the only one that's as part of the group, or do you what do you know of any others? Or
yes, that I'm definitely not the only black flower farmer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think, Dee, am I the only UK member in the group?
You are the only UK member in the group.
Right. Okay.
I do know of a number of other black flower farmers here in the UK.
Yeah.
I guess we are few and far between.
Yeah.
And I think Flowers from the Farm, who's the sort of the UK network of cut flower growers, I think they'd done a survey in sort of recent years, and something like 2% of their membership was identified as black or a person of colour.
Right.
So you can see that's such a a tiny percentage of their membership there. So I think there are lots of different barriers to entry in the UK, which are different to the United States.
Oh, that's interesting. And what would you say they are then? And how, you know, maybe just expand on that a little bit.
So, I mean, one thing is access to land.
Yeah.
So here in the UK, there are no third, fourth, fifth generation black farmers on land in the UK because, you know, there aren't black farmers sort of in rural communities who've held land for that time. And so I know that's something like 2/3 of, say, the membership of Flowers from the Farm own their own land, and lots of that land will not just be home gardens, but it'll also be inherited land that's been held within farming families for generations.
Yeah, which is a big step up, foot on the ladder, isn't it, when you're trying to think about starting a flower farm? Yeah.
And if you think that many communities, many black and people of colour within the UK are centred in urban communities rather than rural communities. And I just know from my own experience, we moved from London to North Norfolk, and I can literally count the other families of colour on, you know, the fingers of one hand.
My
local area. So just being able to access land is just really, really difficult. So, and that's definitely one of the barriers to entry.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I understand you've been involved in a report called Jumping the Fences that was looking at these issues.
That's right. Yeah, the Jumping Fences report, that was actually put together by 3 organisations here in the UK, Land in Our Names, the Land Workers Alliance and the Ecological Land Co-op. And that was some research that they'd done looking at sort of the diversity of farmers here in the UK, and really identifying those barriers to entry. And it's really interesting actually, because the Policy Exchange, which are a think tank here in the UK, they did a report in 2017 and they identified the top 5 least diverse occupations. Farmers are number 1.
Wow.
Environmental professionals number 2, animal care services number 3, police officers are 4, but 5 gardeners and landscape gardeners.
Goodness, that's
4 out of those 5 least diverse occupations are all land-based and quite often rural-based occupations.
Yeah, gosh, that's really interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Goodness. Okay, I'm just going to see whether we've got any general questions. I think there's been questions coming in, and Monique has been very kindly answering lots of people's questions, which is wonderful. Thank you, Monique.
Thank you, Monique. Yes.
But lots of comments. These are the most stunning photos I've seen. That's from Wendy. And we've got a link to Sel's book, which is great. Yeah, never expected Miss Canthus. I think it's mainly oh, I know there was one, and this is for Mimo. Where was that amazing explosion of Liatris that you referred to? Whereabouts was that?
It was in southern Missouri.
Yeah.
In a field. I mean, that was so long ago. It was southern Missouri. I don't really remember.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and we went out there and collected that seed. It was southern Missouri somewhere. Mervyn Wallace of Missouri Wildflowers, who still has that business today, literally travels the state collecting seed.
Yeah. There's a lovely question just come in. What is next for your growers group and how do we all support you? That's a great question. So yeah, come on, guys.
Well, I'm hoping to formalize the group from kind of an informal collective to a nonprofit so that we can have opportunities to mentor new growers who are reaching out. I mean, I have people reach out, and I'm sure others do as well, saying, hey, I've got land or I've got skills, you know, can I work with you? Or in fact, I had someone reach out that said they have family land in South Carolina. They would like to start a flower farm. I connected them to another grower that we have in South Carolina. And I would like to, we have lots of opportunities to do conferences or go to conferences, but I would like to have a retreat for us in 2025. I think everyone could use some time to rest and relax and to enjoy one another's company. And while conferences are great, they don't always allow for that. And I think that would be a great opportunity to try to gather as many of us as possible, and to do that. So we do have a website. We have a website, blackflowerfarmers.com, and there is a giving page on that site. All the money that's been donated so far. When I have in all my free time, I'm gonna start putting together kind of the legal structure to change over to a nonprofit. We had loosely talked about ideas for where a good location might be to have a retreat in the off season, which is, I mean, even though now with climate change, it feels like the off season is shorter and shorter when flowers can grow almost year round. Like I was saying, here we have daffodils, the first anemones, we've got cherry blossoms already, and it's not even March, and these are outside, not in a greenhouse. But sometime I'd like to do maybe between, Christmas and the start of spring, January, February, before everybody does their seed starting and production for the new season, an opportunity for everybody to get together.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. And like you say, not in a conference situation where people can just relax and just talk and exchange ideas and
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, fantastic idea.
Okay.
Oh, someone had asked where I source native plants. So I'm lucky enough to have 2 native nurseries where I live, but my best advice would be to get in touch with your county or whatever extension or agricultural, kind of governmental organization near you, and they can direct you to either a native plant society or, native plant nursery or wholesaler, or even people who may sell on a more casual basis, or even trade plants. I still get lots of those type of plants from, I have, a native plant nursery she'll call and she'll say, hey, I've got too much of this, just come and dig it up and you can, get it.
Well, again, Monique has been, Monique's doing all the hard work.
Yes, she is a member. Monique, she is a farmer. She's based here in Maryland. She's fantastic. She's superb, and she is the biggest cheerleader for all of us. And Monique,
do you want to come on and just say hello? It would be nice to thank you in person. Do you want to
come and join us? Yes.
Put your microphone on and reveal yourself. Where are you? Is she there? Is she trying?
She can't talk.
Oh, she can't. That's so you're not feeling well, and you're being such a hard worker. Well, Monique's put a list of all the speakers today, but obviously, what we will do is when this goes up onto YouTube on the recording, we'll also put a link to everybody so that anyone who's watching.
Yes, I'll include that.
Anyone who's watching it, and also a link to your Just Giving page as well. So and the Black Flower Farmers website. So all of that will go on there. But Monique, thank you so much for doing that. I feel really like you're doing all the hard work. Gosh, it's been well, we could talk for hours and hours and hours. It's been fantastic to gather you all together and to hear your stories, which have been so diverse and just wonderful. It's a lot to think about. And we'd love to have you back to do something else as well. So any time or anything that you any way you can think of that Garden Masterclass can help, we're here, so please get in touch. We could be the venue for your retreat somewhere.
Online retreat. Yeah.
No, I'm not thinking online. I'm thinking of St. Lucia, actually.
That would be a fantastic one. Yeah.
So let's sort it. I'll make the teas. It's all right. Yeah. No, it's been fantastic to see all your wonderful smiling faces and hear all your stories. It's great. It's real. So it's such a nice thing to do on a rainy day. Good. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you
for having you.
And for those of you who've got a working day ahead, good luck. I mean, we're cruising into the evening, but some of you got hard work to get on with, I guess.
I do.
Mima, do have a cup of tea, Mima.
Yeah, I do.
You've only just got off an aeroplane, so
Yeah.
lovely, lovely. Okay, well, listen, thanks everyone for tuning in,
Thank you,
and thank you so much for
Great.
putting or giving us this time, because you're all busy people. So yeah, it's great. Well done, and well done for starting it, Dee. It's been what a brilliant initiative. Yeah, inspirational. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
All the
take
best.
care,
Bye.
everyone. All the best.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Bless you. Bye.